time to go on the record.
I know from my own life, you can't move forward unless you reach out and deal honestly with the past. The truth is that when it comes to race and class, Boston has a lot of unfinished business.
Our guest today, fresh from his first State of the City, Mayor Walsh on the direction he wants to take Boston.
1 year in for Boston Mayor Marty Walsh. Report card, please.
Plagued by a consuming deficit and a very bad cold, Governor Charlie Baker settles into a more modest office. Will his no-frills approach become the norm on Beacon Hill? And a Massachusetts tradition, politics takes a back seat in about 7.5 hours as all eyes look to Foxborough and the road to the Super Bowl.
From WCPB Boston, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, I'm Janet Wu. Our guest this morning is the 47-year-old mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh. The Dorchester Democrat is now 1 year into the job with his first State of the City address in his back pocket. Welcome very much.
Thank you.
2015 is barely underway, and so much has happened in the cities already. In we're 3 weeks into January. Let's start with what happened this past week. Commuters who were heading into the city this past Thursday were stalled on 93 because of protesters who attached themselves to concrete barriers. You've been pretty tolerant of the protesters so far. What can you do to sort of avoid this in the future?
I mean, I think it's hard to avoid it. We've been able to avoid the protesters going on the highway in Boston on several attempts in the past.
Four times in the past?
Yeah, 4 times in the past, and they've been able to protest in Boston. I just think you have to be careful and use a little common sense going onto a highway. There's a lot that can happen up there that's out of a lot of people's control. First of all, the commuters aren't expecting people to be jumping out of a car or however they got there, number one. And number two, you're stalling traffic. You're proving a point by getting your message out, they claim, but you're putting a lot of people in risk and jeopardy.
I know you spoke to Governor Baker that morning, and you have been dealing with the state police as well as your own commissioner, which, as you pointed out, has managed to stop this in the past. How do you stop this from happening, like in Medford and Milton, in places that you can't control?
Well, I think,
but it obviously affects the city.
One of the things, a lot of the protesters talking about protesting what the effects of Ferguson and whatever people are protesting. At some point, we need to have a conversation. And I've said that publicly in the past, and some people say, well, the mayor should reach out to us to have conversations. It doesn't matter who reaches out to who. In my State of the City address, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little later, I address some of the challenges that we have in our city and we have in our Commonwealth.
Have you reached out to them?
I haven't reached out to them, but they certainly, I've seen them. It depends. There's a couple different groups out there. Through different, Reverend Brown has spoken to some groups. He was working up to have a meeting. Commissioner Evans has spoken to another group. I don't know how many different groups are out there, but certainly the agenda that people have, what I'm concerned about is what I spoke about.
Are you going to be more aggressive about reaching out to them to prevent this from happening?
I'll reach out to them. I think if they're the protesters, and I think if they want to have a meeting, we should sit down and talk about it.
Let's switch over to the State of the City, which you delivered this past week. Were you a little nervous when you were doing it?
I got a little nervous going in. I'm usually not nervous, and for some reason beforehand, I was 2 hours beforehand, and we were waiting in the back, and I think I kept reading it, and people came in. So when I walked on the stage, I was nervous. I have to admit that.
You talked a lot about the nuts and bolts of running the city as far as schools are concerned, dealing with the homeless, housing, but you also talked a lot about 2030, which is the city's 400th anniversary. Yeah. Is getting the Olympics sort of key to ensuring that Boston becomes a global city?
I don't think it's key to becoming a global city, but I think it certainly helps us and adds to our value of being a global city. 2030 is kind of the year that I've marked as a year that we can kind of look towards, whether it's around transportation infrastructure. Certainly our educational system by 2030 is going to be better. Our economy hopefully will still be very strong at 2030. Our population will grow to 700,000 people. So we're really looking and focusing on 2030. What the Olympic would do, potential Olympic bid to Boston would do, would speed up some of the transportation infrastructure that we'd have to build in our city. It's not going to necessarily add to strengthen education, but what it really does, it puts Boston on a world stage, and we're going to be on a world stage for the next 2.5 years. That's the key here that people are missing, I think, that we're on a world stage for the next 2.5 years. We're going around to 110 different countries. I'll give you one fact, one stat. The night we were chosen for the Olympic bid, 85 million tweets went out about Boston being chosen around the world as the the choice by the United States Olympic Committee. 85 million tweets around the world. That means people all around the world are talking about the city of Boston.
I don't think there is any question about the publicity value of something like this, but let's talk about the dollars and cents. There was a lot of talk immediately after we were chosen. No taxpayer dollars are going to be used.
Yep.
However, I noticed that you didn't say that in your State of the City address, and since then there's been a lot of information out saying that it is impossible for no federal dollars, for no taxpayers' dollars to be involved, and also the money that's already been approved in the transportation bond bill that everybody says has already been approved. There's a lot of stuff in there that's not in it.
Let's clarify where there is going to be public money in some of the Olympic stuff. This is where there is and there isn't. What I've made it perfectly clear, I'm not using Boston taxpayers' dollars to pay to build a venue. We're not going to be building stadiums. We're not going to be building aquatic centers. We're not going to be building media centers. We're not going to be building all of the buildings that are going to be used afterwards, housing for other things. What there will be money used in the Olympic, or if the Olympics, we don't get the Olympics, is transportation infrastructure. Clearly, there's going to be public infrastructure money put in that. When you talk about security and safety, that money comes from the federal government. There's going to be money in that. We're going to use city-owned land and state-owned land potentially for venues, depending how it moves forward. But when I talk, that's the infrastructure that's going to be beneficial to the people of Boston and the people of the state before the Olympics, and it's going to continue to be beneficial to the people of Boston and the state after the Olympics.
We had a chance to talk to Congressman Bill Keating this past week about this, and this is what he had to say. Let's hear what he has to say.
Oh, for security, I don't think there's any issue. However, on the other issues, we have so many priorities, I think it'd be very difficult to extract too much money for other projects.
Okay. So he agrees with you. It's going to have to, there is going to be money put in, but he says it's going to be tough to get that money from Washington. Are you ready to battle for it?
And I agree with it. And I think the fact that we're going to be looking at, I think at some point as we get into this discussion around infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure, it's not for the Olympics. It's for the city of Boston. I mean, there are areas and roadways that I would love to see some more federal money come into the city of Boston. I'll work with the federal delegation. I'll work with the senators to make sure we get some more money. But again, the infrastructure money is not. When I spoke about 2030, I've spoken about 2030 long before we got the Olympics. I've said this is the goal for our city around transportation and housing. This would just enhance that discussion if we were to get an Olympic Games here in 2024 to speed that process up.
But with the wounds of the Big Dig, do you think they're healed in Washington? They don't look fondly on us after that.
No, I think we've received about $50 million or something the other day from the federal government to bring some money in here. You know, the Big Dig, I think that's the issue around the Olympics. People are comparing the Olympics to the Big Dig. They're trying to compare the casino to the Olympics. 2 or 3 very different. The Big Dig was a long-term construction project that was paid for by the federal government's majority and ended up being paid for by the state more. The second piece is a casino, which is a long-standing 15-year project that's going to be in Everett, and potentially another 15 years after that, and potentially another 15 years after that. The Olympics are going to be here for 2 weeks for the Olympic Games, 2 weeks for the Paralympic Games.
Let's very quickly talk about the budget. You have asked all your departments to cut by 5%. Yeah. Are there some areas that are going to be held harmless that you're not going to demand such a big cut out of them?
No, what we asked them to do is come back with the proposals, what it would look like to cut 5% out of the budget.
What's going to be held harmless, though?
Education.
And anything else?
Probably public safety, but education is the one I'm looking at now. We have to look and see if there's ability to. When I say public safety, I'm not going to cut police officers. I'm not looking to lay people off. What I'm looking to do is to get inefficiencies out of the budget, duplication out of the budget. I think we have an opportunity here to tighten our budget. I don't think the budget in the city of Boston is as tight as it should be.
Okay, so what are you going to be doing at 6:40 tonight?
6:40 tonight, I'll be sitting in Section 128 at Gillette Stadium.
You've had season tickets for a very long time, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
So guess what the theme of today's pop quiz is all about?
Oh, God, I better get this right.
I think perhaps that you may have one up on me on this particular topic, but let's start with the first one. Who was the president the last time the Patriots won the Super Bowl?
George Bush.
That's right, February 2005. Which quarterback has been in the championship game more, Tom Brady or Joe Montana?
Tom Brady.
Do you know by how much? How many times?
I want to say 2 now. I think this will be a second game.
Well, this is his 9th championship game.
I think this will be a second. I think he's 1 ahead of Montana, and now this will make him 2.
Yes. Well, I think yes, that's right. That's absolutely correct. We'll be right back with more OTR.